As most of you know, the world this week has been mourning the death of David Bowie. After giving it a few days, I decided to go with the gut feeling I'd been having since then and look into some of the symbology surrounding his death. And some of the things I've found are quite strange and unexplainable. Now, before we get started, please understand I am, in fact, a fan of David Bowie and his work. I'm in no way, shape, or form attempting to portray him as evil or as a bad person or anything like that with some of the facts that we're going to examine in this short film. I'm simply presenting these facts so you can draw your own conclusion as to what all this really means. So please watch the video in its entirety before making a judgment. David Bowie died January 10th, 2016 at age 69. Being of the zodiac sign Cancer myself, the symbology of 69 being the sign for cancer and Bowie dying from liver cancer stuck out to me as being symbolic first thing, but I ignored it until I started seeing other strange connections. In 1969, Bowie had his first hit with the song Space Oddity. And this is where we're first introduced to the character Major Tom, who Bowie would again use in other songs later in his career. Many people don't even know that the song is called Space Oddity. Many presume that the song is called simply Major Tom, since the word Space Oddity don't actually appear in the lyrics for the song. Bowie wrote the song after watching the Stanley Kubrick film 2001, A Space Odyssey. The song tells the story of Major Tom, a fictional astronaut who gets cut off from communication with Earth and floats into space. In a 2003 interview with Performing Songwriter magazine, Bowie explained, quote, "In England, it was always presumed that it was written about the space landing because it kind of came to prominence around the same time. But it actually wasn't. It was written because of going to see the film 2001, A Space Odyssey, which I found amazing. I was out of my gourd anyway. I was very stoned when I went to see it several times, and it was really a revelation to me. It got the song flowing. It was picked up by British television and used as the background music for the landing itself. The song was released to coincide with the Apollo 11 moon mission on July 11th, 1969. 5 days later, the alleged Apollo 11 mission was launched on January 16th, 1969. And this wouldn't be the last time Bowie would reference Stanley Kubrick, referencing droogies from A Clockwork Orange in Suffragette City and wearing outfits from the film on stage. On his final album, Black Star, released on his 69th birthday, he again references Kubrick in the lyrics of the song Girl Loves Me, where he slips in and out of singing in the fictitious Russian-derived Nadsat language used in the film A Clockwork Orange. Nadsat is a type of slang used to encode secret messages. It appears that Bowie has taken a nod from his idol Stanley Kubrick, using his art as a medium to transmit hidden messages to the masses. Kubrick is widely believed to have faked the Apollo 11 moon landings using technology that was developed for his 2001 A Space Odyssey film. The film The Shining was used by Kubrick to encode his admission of his involvement in the faking of the Apollo 11 mission. He later left another clue by demanding in his contract that his film Eyes Wide Shut would be released on January 16th, 1999. 30 years to the day to the launch of the Apollo 11 mission. Kubrick was reportedly given unlimited budgets and full control over all of his films for life in exchange for his work helping NASA fake Apollo 11. In 1975, while filming his period film Barry Lyndon, Kubrick was allowed to use Zeiss camera lenses developed for NASA to capture images from the dark side of the moon in 1966. Kubrick was then allowed access to elite circles, where he witnessed bizarre rituals similar to those he depicted in the film Eyes Wide Shut. This film was a direct call-out of the CIA-controlled Scientology cult that his daughter Vivian was a member of. Kubrick knew that the CIA, who had tasked him with faking the moon mission after seeing his exact replica of a B-52 cockpit in Dr. Strangelove, also had created the very cult that his daughter had now, in his mind, been kidnapped into. This is why there is a very subtle abduction scene of the daughter at the end of Eyes Wide Shut, and also why Kubrick insisted that the film only be released on July 16th, of course, the same day that the Apollo mission was launched 30 years previously. Bowie's entire band, from the Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars and their road crew, were recruited into Scientology during that tour. With Bowie wanting nothing to do with the cult, he became alienated from his crew and his band, which led him to disband the group and then move into an entirely different direction musically, which we'll talk about later on. So Bowie begins his career in 1969, referencing Stanley Kubrick, and then ends it at age 69, again referencing Kubrick and using a heavy amount of symbology to do so. The video for the song Black Star opens with the spacesuit of Major Tom being discovered by a girl with a tail, who finds a jewel-encrusted skull but no body inside. Bowie is depicted as Lazarus, indicated by the burial cloths and buttons on his eyes. Lazarus was risen to the dead by Christ in the Bible after being dead for 4 days. Bowie and others in the video are shaking with an almost zombie-like demeanor, animated and brought back from the dead by some unknown animating energy force. The skull in the spacesuit is a reference to the skull of John the Baptist, who was beheaded and had his body buried separately from his head. John the Baptist had predicted the coming of Christ, yet Jesus did not resurrect his friend John the Baptist, but instead chose to resurrect Lazarus. Bowie is clearly depicting himself as the resurrected Lazarus and the character of Major Tom as the beheaded John the Baptist. The skull of John the Baptist is on display even today in Rome, where it is encrusted with jewels and wrapped in gold, with the purpose of serving as an ephod device, which is said to enable direct communication with the spirit world. These are also used by the Pope. His hat itself is an ephod, if you examine that closely. And the chest plates used by Hebrew mystics and Kabbalists. The girl with the tail then takes the skull into a mysterious town where, on a hill, we see a palace of some kind that features the black obelisks seen in 2001: A Space Odyssey. We then see girls possessed by this same animating energy, and the headless skeleton of Major Tom floating into a black hole, just as Dave Bowman does in Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Bowie then takes on the role of John the Revelator, or John of Patmos, also known as John the Divine or John the Theologian. It is the name given to the author of the book of Revelation, the apocalyptic text forming the final chapter of the New Testament of the Bible. Here, Bowie appears to be preaching a gospel or predicting a coming event, and some of the other resurrected folks seen earlier are looking on. He's holding what appears to be a Bible, which has the black star symbol seen on the album cover. He seems to be prophesizing something coming from a certain direction, which is presumably the black hole or black star Major Tom's body is sucked into. The themes of rebirth and the forming of a new religion are heavily implied in the song and the video. We were born upside down, born the wrong way around. This is a reference to the death of the body, which is perceived as the end of life, but is in fact a new birth into the spirit world, according to many religions as well as occult belief systems. Theosophist Alice Bailey, in her book Initiation Human and Solar, explains how adepts who become masters in the earthly realm ascend to the Great Lodge after death and then become adepts or learners all over again in a rebirth. She then also states that this next Great Lodge after Earth is located in the Sirius star system. Mystery schools consider Sirius to be the sun behind the sun, and therefore the true source of our sun's potency. If our sun's warmth keeps the physical world alive, Sirius is considered to keep the spiritual world alive. It is the real light shining in the east, the spiritual light, whereas the sun illuminates the physical world, which is considered to be a grand illusion. Modern secret societies such as the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, the Golden Dawn, which are all considered to be Hermetic orders due to the fact that their teachings are based on those of Hermes Trismegistus, or also known as Thoth. All of these orders all attribute to Sirius the most importance of anything. Anything that they discuss, anything that's in their materials, they attribute the utmost importance to Sirius. Educated look at their symbolism provides a glimpse at the profound connection between Sirius and occult philosophy. The blazing star originally represented Sirius, or the dog star, the forerunner of the inundation of the Nile, the god Anubis, companion of Isis in her search for the body of Osiris, her brother and husband. Then it became the image of Horus, the son of Osiris himself, symbolized also by the sun, the author of the seasons, and the god of time, son of Isis, who was the universal nature, himself the primitive matter, the inexhaustible source of life, the spark of uncreated fire, and the universal seed of all beings. It was Hermes also, the master of learning, whose name in Greek is that of the god Mercury. In Freemasonry, it is taught that the blazing star is a symbol of deity, of omnipresence. Sirius is therefore the sacred place that all Masons must ascend to. It is the source of divine power and the destination of divine individuals. This concept is often represented in Masonic art. To achieve perfection, the initiate must successfully understand and internalize the dual nature of the world, good and evil, masculine and feminine, black and white, etc. Through alchemical metamorphosis, this concept is symbolically represented by the union of Osiris and Isis, the male and the female principles. They give birth to Horus, the star child, the Christ-like figure, the perfected man of Freemasonry, who is equated with, of course, the blazing star of Sirius. The Egyptian god Horus and the star Sirius are often associated. In Masonic symbolism, the eye of Horus, or the all-seeing eye, is often depicted surrounded by the glittering golden light of Sirius. This Masonic tracing board depicts the sun above the left pillar, representing the masculine, the moon above the right pillar, representing the feminine, and Sirius above the middle pillar, representing the perfected man, or Horus, the son of Isis and Osiris. Notice the eye of Horus on Sirius. Masonic ritual is designed around the symbolic story of the building of a great spiritual temple, as represented by the Temple of Solomon. The 3 Masonic degrees are designed to represent 3 stages of life: youth, manhood, and age. These degrees must be obtained first, before the Mason is then reborn symbolically and allowed to pursue higher degrees of Masonry, such as those that go from the 4th degree and up in Scottish Rite and York Rite Masonry. The threefold stages of man is the hidden meaning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, with Dave Bowman being reborn as the Star Child. The black star seems to represent not only Sirius, but the death of a star itself. Is Bowie referring symbolically only to himself as a dying star, or possibly to the death of an actual star, such as Sirius as well? If Bowie intentionally encoded these things, Kubrick style, as hidden references, then Bowie himself must have been a student of esoteric teachings such as those espoused from the likes of the Golden Dawn, the Vril, Aleister Crowley, the Freemasons, and more. Indeed, when we look at Bowie's own words through the years, both in terms of his songs and interviews, that does seem to be the case. In 1976, Bowie said, "My overriding interest is in Kabbalah and Crowleyism, that whole dark and rather fearsome netherworld of the wrong side of the brain." Bowie also had an interest in Nazism, and was even quoted in 1976 as saying that Britain could benefit from a fascist leader, and that Hitler was the first pop star. He was also detained by customs on the Russian-Polish border for possessing Nazi paraphernalia. Matters came to a head in London in May 1976 in what became known as the Victoria Station incident. Arriving in an open-top Mercedes convertible, Bowie waved to the crowd in a gesture that some alleged was a Nazi salute, which was captured on camera and published in the NME. Bowie said the photographer simply caught him in mid-wave. He later blamed his pro-fascism comments and his behavior during this period on his addictions and the character of the Thin White Duke. Bowie said, quote, "I was out of my mind, totally crazed. The main thing I was functioning on was this mythology. That whole thing about Hitler and rightism, I had discovered King Arthur. The Thin White Duke was Bowie's next persona after Ziggy Stardust, and he claimed that he was an evolved Aryan Superman." Bowie's explanation that his interest in Nazism stemmed only from his personification of the Thin White Duke falls apart when you examine the lyrics from two songs written by Bowie and featured on the 1971 album Hunky Dory. The songs "Oh You Pretty Things" and "Quicksand." In the lyrics of "Oh You Pretty Things," the lyrics read, "Oh you pretty things, don't you know you're driving your mamas and papas insane? Let me make it plain, you gotta make way for the homo superior. Look at your children, see their faces in golden rays. Don't kid yourself, they belong to you. They're the start of a coming race. The earth is a bitch. We finished our news. Homo sapiens have outgrown their use. All the strangers came today, and it looks as though they're here to stay." This is a direct reference to the Aryan Superman idea Bowie claims that he didn't create until 1976. He also references the golden rays, which we discussed earlier, are the golden rays emanating from Sirius. Here, taken from the song Quicksand, Bowie writes, "I'm closer to the golden dawn, immersed in Crowley's uniform of imagery. I'm living in a silent film portraying Himmler's sacred realm of dream reality. I'm not a prophet or a Stone Age man, just a mortal with the potential of a Superman. I'm living on, I'm tethered to the logic of Homo sapien. Can't take my eyes from the great salvation of bullshit faith. If I don't explain what you ought to know, you can tell me all about it on the next Bardo. I'm sinking in the quicksand of my thought, and I ain't got the power anymore. Don't believe in yourself, don't deceive with belief. Knowledge comes with death's release." Here again, he references the Aryan Superman, the Golden Dawn, Crowley, and Himmler, all of whom are connected to the Black Star or Black Sun, as well as Sirius. He also appears in Egyptian gear inside the album sleeve for Hunky Dory, looking very much like Crowley in similar attire. He also says the line, "Knowledge comes with death's release," referencing the new lodge of initiation on Sirius, where Theosophist Alice Bailey says one goes after death, where one once again becomes the learner. Remember that the Nazis held theosophy in a high regard, and Bowie's reference to Himmler instead of Hitler is due in fact to Himmler being the most active occultist in Nazi Germany. In October 1918, Hitler was blinded in a gas attack and sent to a military hospital in Pacewalk, a small town northeast of Berlin. According to Hitler, during his recovery at the hospital, he experienced a vision from another world. In that vision, Hitler was told that he would lead Germany back to glory. The result of this experience was that Hitler knew he would be able to perform an act of creation, a divine operation, the goal of a biological mutation which will result in an unprecedented exaltation of the human race and the appearance of a new race of heroes, demigods, and godmen. The Vril Society began around the same time as the Thule Society, when Karl Haushofer founded the Brüder des Lichts, which means Brothers of the Light. This organization is sometimes referred to as the Luminous Lodge. This group was eventually renamed the Vril Gesellschaft as it rose in prominence and unified three major societies. The Lords of the Black Stone having emerged from the Teutonic Order in 1917, the Black Knights of the Thule Society, and the Black Sun, later identified as the elite of Heinrich Himmler's SS. Whereas the Thule Society ended up focusing primarily on materialistic and political agendas, the Vril Society put its attention specifically on the other side. A local medium named Maria Orsic began getting messages in an unknown language and couldn't transcribe them, so she began meeting with key members of these societies, along with another medium named Sigrun. Accordingly, the messages were coming from a being from the star Aldebaran. The Thule Society believed their ancestors came from a land beyond the poles known as Hyperborea. As it is beyond the poles, Hyperborea is positioned as being outside of this dimension. Thule, being in the center, is positioned as the source of all life on Earth. In Greek mythology, Pythagoras was taught sacred geometry by Apollo, a god who was identified as a resident of Hyperborea. In Pythagorean teachings, the Earth itself is geometrically unfolded from a void in the center. This void has been recognized by many ancient groups, including the Sumerians, as the Black Sun. In this sense, the Thule is synonymous with the Black Sun. The word swastika itself means source among other definitions and represents eternal cause or the fountain of creation. The Black Sun is an even more esoteric concept than that of the Thule. Represented as the void of creation itself, it is the most senior archetype imaginable. Thus, this namesake was reserved for the elite of the Thule Society. The Black Sun was actually a secret society within the Thule Society. In Lytton's The Coming Race, the subterranean people used the Vril Force to operate and govern the world, served by robots and able to fly on Vril-powered wings. The vegetarian Vrilya are, by their own reckoning, racially and culturally superior to everyone else on Earth above or below the ground. At one point, the narrator concludes that the Vrilya are descended from the same ancestors as the great Aryan family, from which in varied streams has flowed into the dominant civilization of the world. The Vril force, or Vril energy, was said to be derived from the Black Sun, a big ball of prima materia which supposedly exists in the center of the Earth, giving light to the Vrilya and putting out radiation in the form of the Vril. The Vril Society believed that Aryans were the actual biological ancestors of the Black Sun itself. This force was known to the ancients under many names, and it has been called Chi, Vril, Astral Light, odic forces, orgone, and more. In a discussion of the 28th degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry, called the Knight of the Sun or Prince Adept, Albert Pike says, quote, "There is in nature one most potent force, by means whereof a single man, who could possess himself of it, and should know how to direct it, could revolutionize and change the face of the world." David Bowie seems to have been quite aware of this force. This is the force that the Nazis and their inner occult circle were so desperately trying to unleash upon the world. A manifestation of the great work promulgated by the adepts of secret societies throughout the ages, the Vril Society latched on to a very old archetype already in the minds of alchemists and magicians, which was only reinterpreted by Lytton in light of that age of occult revival and scientific progress. The idea of mutation and transformation into a higher form of a god-man was envisioned through the Vrilya in Buller Lytton's The Coming Race. Lytton himself was an initiate of the Rosicrucians and was well-versed in the arcane esoteric philosophies. Through his romantic works of fiction, he expressed the conviction that there are beings endowed with superhuman powers. These beings will supplant us all and bring about a formidable mutation in the elect of the human race. This article from 2001, titled "The Secret Jewish History of David Bowie," states, Madonna had nothing on David Bowie when she came out as a devotee of Kabbalah in 1998. British rock star Bowie beat Madonna by 20 years or so when he sang about the Sephirot, the mystical vessels of divine energy, in the title track of his 1976 album, Station to Station. Really? Yes, sure enough. Bowie sings, "Here we are, one magical movement from Kether to Malkuth." In Station to Station, perhaps the only usage of Kabbalistic terminology in Hebrew ever by a major international pop singer. The lyrics refer to the divine emanations of the infinite. Kether, or the crown, said to be the divine will or pure light, and Malkuth, or kingship, the nurturing receptacle of that light. Bowie was pictured on the back of the album drawing a diagram of the 10 Sephirot, an activity he purportedly engaged in with some frequency while recording the album in Los Angeles, a time during which he was supposedly bombed out of his mind on cocaine. I had this more than passing interest in Egyptology, mysticism, and the Kabbalah. At the time, it seemed transparently obvious what the answer to life was. My whole life would be transformed into this bizarre nihilistic fantasy world of impending doom, mythological characters, and imminent totalitarianism. The Station to Station track itself is very much concerned with the Stations of the Cross. All the references within the piece are to do with the Kabbalah. It's the nearest album to a magic treatise that I've ever written. I've never read a review that really sussed it. It's an extremely dark album. Miserable time to live through, I must say. In an interview with Johann Renck, the director of Bowie's Black Star video, he discusses openly his affection for Aleister Crowley. He says, quote, "Well, I'm a huge Crowley fan. I've always been. I tried to make a movie on his life a few years ago, but we didn't manage to put it together. I love Crowley for being an audacious man at certain points in time. I think he was greatly misunderstood. He was a good guy, but he was portrayed as an evil man, and he wasn't." Bowie again references themes of the Aryan Superman, Rebirth, and Crowley in the song After All from his record The Man Who Sold the World. Man is an obstacle, sad as the clown. Live to your rebirth and do what you will. Crowley was also a member of an arcane secret society known as the AA, or the Argentinium Astra, or the Order of the Silver Star. The Silver Star referred to is Sirius itself, the most prominent in the heavens and positioned as the chief star in the ancient constellation Phoenix. The ancient Assyrians and Phoenicians both derived their names from this legacy. Crowley identified the Order of the Silver Star as the Illuminati itself. As he was considered to be the head of the Illuminati, the correspondences continued to run even deeper. The heart of his magical current was inspired from Sirius, and there was much tradition to back this up. In occult tradition, Sirius is the hidden god, or the sun behind the sun. As the moon reflects the sun, so does the sun reflect Sirius. The AA is a spiritual organization described in 1907 by occultist Aleister Crowley. Its members are dedicated to the advancement of humanity by perfection of the individual on every plane through a graded series of universal initiations. The AA applies what it describes as mystical and magical methods of spiritual attainment under the structure of the Kabbalistic tree of life, and aims to research, practice, and teach scientific illuminism. The Order of the Silver Star, or Sun Behind the Sun, was shortened to SS by the Nazis. Central to the secret initiation that the senior SS generals of the Nazis received was the real significance of the anagram SS itself. For the rank-and-file elite of the SS, the initials stood for the German word Schutzstaffel, a term meaning loosely a special staff or military unit. But to the initiates, there was another meaning of SS altogether, a meaning with roots deep in the occult and in ancient Sumerian, Babylon, and to a certain extent, Egyptian belief. For these initiates, the letters SS referred to the Die Schwarze Song, or the Black Sun. The doctrine of the Black Sun, reaching back to ancient Sumer and Akkadia, is that there are two suns: the white sun, the sun that we see at the center of our physical solar system, and the black sun, a hidden sun of spiritual illumination. In some versions of the myth, it is thought to reside at the center of our galaxy. Other sources place it as one of the causes of the immortality and reincarnation of the soul. It's clear that with the Black Star video, Bowie is tying up loose ends in more ways than one, revealing the fate of Major Tom and returning as the Thin White Duke, the Aryan Superman from station to station. This is further solidified with the other song and video from Black Star, Lazarus, with Bowie again confirming that he is portraying the resurrected Lazarus figure and the Thin White Duke as we see him returning with the outfit he is seen wearing while drawing the Tree of Life from inside the Station to Station album cover, the first appearance of the Aryan Superman character. We again see Bowie as the Thin White Duke, animated with the Black Star Life Force energy, and this is confirmed with the appearance of the John the Baptist Major Tom jewel-encrusted skull on his desk. Was this simply a heavily orchestrated goodbye, as most people have taken it? Or was Bowie attempting to translate a more meaningful message for those with the knowledge and eyes to see, just as his hero Stanley Kubrick had done in his final work? Was he attempting to warn us of a coming event such as a supernova creating a black hole in the star system Sirius that would affect our own star, the Sun? If Bowie did receive inside information about some sort of major event which compelled him to use his last performance as a warning, who in his circle of friends could be in a position to obtain such information? While watching the Lazarus video and pondering this thought, the words Lazarus missions popped into my head. I knew I had heard of this somewhere, but couldn't recall where and when, so when I Googled it, more of the puzzle pieces fell into place. The Lazarus missions are fictional NASA missions from the film Interstellar. Sent out to find a new planet suitable to sustain human life after Earth becomes inhabitable, the missions are sent through a wormhole opened by a supermassive black hole parked near the planet Saturn, and robot companions are sent along on the missions. Just like in Kubrick's 2001, where Dave travels through a black hole near Saturn, Interstellar uses the exact same scenario. The robots sent out on the Lazarus missions look like walking versions of the black monoliths from 2001: A Space Odyssey. These monolith stones help save humanity when they sacrifice themselves into the black hole that allows them to send back relevant data needed to solve the formula for overcoming gravity. The monolith stones do this around the planet Saturn, and director Christopher Nolan has openly admitted Kubrick's influence, and the media has even declared him the new Stanley Kubrick. But the most shocking Kubrick reference in the film comes in the form of a reference to the fake moon landings, and this makes it unmistakable. In the film, they rewrite the textbooks and claim that NASA faked the lunar landings in order to bankrupt the Soviet Union during the Cold War. The film alleges that this is done in order to teach kids about life on Earth rather than worrying about space. Does Christopher Nolan know something about the fake moon landings? Or is he being touted as the new Kubrick because he is going to be tasked with faking a grand illusion just as Kubrick did before him? So it appears that Christopher Nolan is the best candidate for Bowie's inside information source. But is there anything that relates to what we've already discussed in this film that links the two of them together? You bet there is. Bowie wrote and performed the song Something in the Air, which is played over the end credits of Christopher Nolan's 2000 film Memento. He also starred as Nikola Tesla in Nolan's 2006 film The Prestige. For the role of Tesla, Christopher Nolan said he wanted someone who was not necessarily a movie star, but had an enigmatic quality. Bowie initially turned down the role, but Nolan visited him and explained that he was the only one he wanted for the part, so Bowie agreed. Well, there you have it. It's clear the two had a trusting relationship and an obvious shared love of all things Kubrick. And the poster for Interstellar clearly shows the black sun, black hole, wormhole front and center. One final tidbit that serves to tie all of this together is a person who has worked on multiple Christopher Nolan films, including The Prestige and Interstellar. Academy Award nominated production designer Nathan Crowley. Now, I thought surely he couldn't be an actual relative of Aleister Crowley and have worked with both Christopher Nolan and David Bowie, but sure enough, Nathan Crowley was featured in the art newspaper's article on a display of Egyptian symbolism found in a superhero comic exhibit at the Met. Quoting from the magazine, quote, Nathan Crowley is not only production designer of Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, but as revealed to Flotsam magazine, he has his own supervillain heritage. Yes, infamous UK occultist Aleister Crowley is a direct relative. He's my grandfather's cousin, but we were never allowed to even mention his name because we were a very Quaker family. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We can now clearly see that these facts are more than mere coincidence. It appears David Bowie used his final work as a vessel to deliver a message of some coming event that he acquired knowledge of that will cause death, rebirth, and the ushering in of a new type of human and religion. It may also be telling of a possible supernova black hole occurring in the Sirius star system, ushering in the age of the Aryan Superman Bowie hinted about in his music for decades. And it most certainly appears that it has something to do with a NASA cover-up, possibly even something faked by Christopher Nolan, just like Kubrick and Apollo 11, designed to deceive the masses on a grand scale. As I was putting this film together, I had the number 69 in my head connecting all of this symbology. At that moment, I saw a news ticker on my computer and thought I was seeing things at first when I read the words, Alan Rickman, dead, cancer, age 69. My stomach sank. Being that I'm also a huge fan of Alan Rickman, it didn't take me very long to immediately see the connection to the Bowie stuff. As we mentioned earlier, Lazarus was risen from the dead by Christ 4 days after his death. And here, exactly 4 days after Bowie's death, Alan Rickman dies of cancer at the same age as Bowie. Now, you might think, well, what does that have to do with the Lazarus symbology? And the answer can be found in the Harry Potter films that Rickman starred in. Here again, we see the themes of duality, dark, light, good and evil, death, and rebirth. Gary Oldman, who worked with Christopher Nolan on his Batman films, plays the role of Sirius Black, who transforms into a dog. Sirius is, of course, known as the Dog Star, and Gary Oldman also worked with David Bowie, appearing in his 2013 music video for the song The Next Day. And it's hard not to see this as another part of his message, as he again appears dressed as some sort of biblical character, with Gary Oldman dressed as a priest shouting, "You're no prophet," in the middle of the song, which also features themes of death, priests, and, of course, Armageddon. Gary Oldman also starred in the science fiction film The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis, who starred in Die Hard with Alan Rickman, the film that put Rickman on the map as an actor. This film contains similar themes to what we have already discussed. In the film The Fifth Element, in 1914, aliens known as Mondoshawians arrive at an ancient Egyptian temple to collect for safekeeping the only weapon capable of defeating a great evil that appears every 5,000 years. The weapon consists of 4 stones representing the 4 classical elements, and a sarcophagus containing a 5th element in the form of a human, which combines the power of the other 4 elements into a divine light capable of defeating the evil. The Mondoshawians promise their human contact, a priest from a secret order, that they will come back with the element stones in time to stop the great evil when it returns. In 2263, the great evil appears in deep space in the form of a giant ball of black fire, resembling again the black sun or the black star, which is then transformed into another Earth moon when it's defeated. The movie Star Wars: The Force Awakens also contains black sun symbology in the emblem of the First Order. Actor Domhnall Gleeson, best known as Bill Weasley in the Harry Potter films, plays the role of First Order General Hux. Actor Andy Serkis, who portrayed General Snoke in Star Wars: The Force Awakens, also starred in The Prestige alongside Christopher Nolan and David Bowie. One final clue that sealed the deal for me was the release of a new movie called The Moonwalkers. This film is being released exactly 1 week to the day after the release of Bowie's Black Star, and 1 day after the death of Harry Potter actor Alan Rickman. Why is that important? Hold on to your hats. It stars Harry Potter actor Rupert Grint, who played Ron Weasley in Harry Potter. And dig this. This film, The Moonwalkers, is about a CIA agent who attempts to track down director Stanley Kubrick in hopes of paying him to fake the Apollo 11 moon mission, and is instead given an imposter of Kubrick by the actor who portrayed Ron Weasley, Rupert Grint. This is unbelievable. What are the odds that a film about the subject of Kubrick being paid to fake the moon landings, what are the odds this would come out exactly a week to the day after Bowie's Black Star and 1 day after the death of Alan Rickman? The odds are astronomical. Even the most hardened coincidence theorist would be hard-pressed to deny this many insane connections. In closing, I'd like to discuss a few more significant details to this story. On December 3rd, 2015, singer Scott Weiland of the band Stone Temple Pilots was found dead on his tour bus of a drug overdose. In one of his final interviews, just 2 days before his death, Weiland was asked if he could collaborate with anyone living or dead, who would it be? And his answer, of course, was David Bowie. Whelan stated many times on the record that Bowie was his #1 biggest influence. And 6 days after his death, a fake video alleging to be Stanley Kubrick admitting to faking the Apollo 11 missions appeared on the internet. It's clear now that someone knew of these coming events and was attempting to muddy the waters by creating a fake Kubrick admission tape, thereby creating the false assumption that the Kubrick moon story entirely was a lie. On October 26, 2015, Bowie announced that his new album Black Star would be released in January of 2016. 16 years previously to the day, on October 26, 1999, Stone Temple Pilots released their album 4, which unbelievably features almost the identical cover as Black Star, signifying the dual black and white nature of Sirius, depicted in the yin, yang, and the zodiacal 69 Cancer symbol. David Bowie has left us more than just his music and work. He has left us clues to uncover important truths encoded in his art that may serve humanity in the future if we are paying attention.